This is the second video in a series about different ways to store reusable content for use in automated document templates in Microsoft Word. The first and probably simplest way to organize boilerplate content is to save each individual piece as a separate Word document, and then organize these files into folders with names that make it easy to find what you need. This collection of shared folders and files is usually stored on a company network and makes up what I call a content library. For example, here is a product description with a picture and some technical details. This is one chunk of content I want to be able to store so I can find it in the future. Now let's say we have hundreds of these. What we do is organize them into folders and subfolders by manufacturer, category, and product type. On your toolbar, you'd have a button that lets you browse through this collection just like you were opening a file. Let's suppose I'm in the middle of preparing a quote for my customer, and now I want to add my product descriptions. I don't even need to remember where the content library is saved on the network. I just hit this button called Add Product, which takes me directly to the products collection, and I use the folder names to drill down, starting with the manufacturer, then the product category, the product type, and finally the individual product descriptions. This is the one I want, so I just double-click and it pops into my document. Now let's do the same thing to add another air compressor. And then I will add an air filter. Now you can see how much easier it would be to build a quote document using this kind of feature, instead of having to track down old proposals and cut and paste my product descriptions from those, never quite sure they're still up to date. Now that works great if you're adding one thing at a time, but if you want to add several pieces of content at once, we can provide a dialog box that makes that easier. Even if your content collection is small, we can still use this technique to keep it simple and uncluttered. For example, to pick from a collection of bios for professionals in my consulting company. This time, rather than browse through a folder and choose the document I want to insert, I'm going to click this Insert Bios button. I have a dialog box that shows me on the left a list of available bios. I highlight the ones I want, then I use these other buttons to add them to the selection list and put them in the correct order. When I'm ready, I choose Insert Bios, and they're all added to the document at the same time. As we saw with the products, because we're storing these chunks as separate little Word documents, they can contain text and pictures in whatever formatting I want. Here's an example of a tool I built for a client that combines these two methods. We're going to be adding sections of boilerplate content to a proposal document. I select Build Proposal, and it brings up this dialog. Like before, each section of content is stored in a separate file, organized in folders on my network. But this time I can see all three levels at once. When I choose the top level, it expands to show me the next level down. Then I pick an item on the second level, and here's my list of sections in that category. So one by one, using this sort of control panel, I go through and select pieces I want to include in my document and add them to the list. With this button here, I can preview the selected document to make sure it's what I want. If I choose to include the name of the folder, that becomes a section header in my proposal. Let's go through and add a few more sections. I rearrange them in whatever order I want. When I'm ready, I choose Insert into Document, and the toolbar goes out and grabs all of those pieces and brings them into my document, one after another, in the correct order. The final step would be to go through the boilerplate sections and customize those as needed for the particular client and solution I'm working on. We could have a button that makes that easier to do, and to make sure you don't miss anything. If you want, we could turn this into a fully automated document building tool. So instead of picking out sections by hand, you'd choose from a list of pre-designed configurations. Selecting one of these would automatically create that list of sections to be pulled in. Then you could still customize that if you want, or just go with the default. A nice thing about pulling from a shared content library is that you have one official copy in one central place for all users. That makes it super easy to maintain. Whatever department owns that content can add, update, or delete pieces in the library as often as they need to. Every time anybody clicks on their toolbar, it reaches out to grab the latest up-to-date versions from the library. Let's go back to the bio collection and show how that would work. When I choose the Insert Bios button, notice that the list does not have a bio for me, Bryce Bassett. Now we'll jump to the folder where those bio documents are kept. Say I'm someone in the HR department, and we have a new employee named Bryce Bassett. So I'm going to add his bio to the folder. And there it is. Now, the next time somebody clicks the Insert Bios button, the toolbar scans that folder and picks up the latest changes. And now there's Bryce Bassett on the list of available bios. One last thing I wanted to mention. In these examples, the content library has been stored on a local area network. But if you have employees who travel a lot or work remotely, they may not always be connected to the company network, or their connection may be too slow. In that case, we install a mirror copy of the content library directly onto their local computer, and they change an easy setting on their toolbar to point to that local library instead of the network library. As long as we make sure to update their local copy of the content library every month or so they have the latest and greatest, this is a very good solution for remote staff. In large companies or organizations, on the other hand, the content library could be stored on SharePoint, so it could be easily accessed by multiple offices across the country or around the world. Thank you for watching. I invite you to check out my other videos in this series, where I talk about different ways to store and retrieve reusable content for use in automated templates.